Matt Levi Investigates, HPD Behind the Badge 2021. Brought to you in the public interest without commercial interruption by BEI Hawaii, Hawaii's leading distributor of agricultural and industrial chemicals, fertilizer, and specialty products.
So the front main entrance door, there's that the boarded up the glass with a wood.
A good police officer basically knows that you're not doing this job for attention, for fame, for glory, because none of that comes. Usually you get yelled at a lot. Most of the situations you go to, you're going because something bad happened. So they don't like to see you come. And we know that. But yet you got to still be able to do your job.
First local male is wearing black shirt, jean shorts, sticking his wing on sleeve.
I think what makes a good cop is probably what's always made a good cop, somebody who wants to do good and help others be fair in the way that you think is fair and do the right things.
So the badge represents what to you?
A lot of things: pride, safety, my family, brothers and sisters. It represents everything. It represents the aloha spirit of what we are in Hawaii. We're one big family, no matter if you're a stranger or not. And that's how I feel that Hawaii is and what the badge represents.
Let's get one thing out of the way. The Honolulu Police Department is not in danger of collapse. It is facing unprecedented scrutiny and criticism, but HPD will survive. It's an institution with a rock-solid foundation. The department's men and women honor the debt they owe to the community that still overwhelmingly supports and trusts them.
Very much. But then, that close intervals, just right.
Officers also carry into the streets every day and night an appreciation of the sacrifices of those who came before them. It's upon the unbending shoulders of the officers in HPD's long history that the men and women of 2021 proudly stand. Honolulu, in many respects, is still a small town. Family, school, and business relationships are its strength, and those unique island bonds can be an impenetrable wall to outsiders seeking to fit in. Local law enforcement exemplifies that strong as steel network. Unusual is the local resident not related to or not close to someone with ties to the Honolulu Police Department. For decades, the department ran smoothly. Then, the unthinkable. Honolulu Chief of Police Louis Kealoha and his wife, a Honolulu deputy prosecutor, were charged with federal crimes. The trial that followed uncovered a sometimes confusing and embarrassing tale of corruption, resulting in lengthy prison terms for both. Corporal Chad Giesman is a 25-year veteran of the force.
When that investigation started coming up, a lot of us were thinking, no. We had our doubts, and as the process went through and we started finding out more things, I want to say it did affect a lot, especially me, because, like I said, because I knew Chief Kealoha personally.
The convictions were a devastating blow. Tonight, you will hear from Honolulu Police Department rank-and-file officers speaking publicly for the first time as we explore issues going to the very core of their mission and to the integrity of the department. Those officers' story begins with Louis Kealoha, the former chief, convicted and sent to prison.
You don't want to believe it. You have your doubts, but at the same time, it starts to look bad on the department, and you can see not so much morale, but you can see a lot of people. Yeah, it takes effects because that's a lot of the questions when for us patrol guys go out there. You hear it a lot. We get those questions every day. So how's your chief? Or it's sarcastic, or whether they're asking serious. It's just hard answering those type of questions to the public.
Sergeant Nathan Baisa has worked patrol and SWAT for 32 years.
The end result just tainted the Honolulu Police Department from how the community or how the media perceives us. So we have to move on, and we have to build that trust again.
but trust was lost?
I believe the trust from society and the community, I think trust was lost.
Corporal Sherry Tafflinger came from a law enforcement family that influenced her decision to join HPD. She has served 17 years on the force.
Did that put a stain on the whole department?
It did, because we get judged by one person's actions, but doesn't mean we're all like that. You know, there's a lot of good that people do in the department, and I feel that that's an isolated incident, and you shouldn't judge us as the men and women of the department because our leader made a bad choice.
Sergeant Tamara Torres has 21 years on the force. She served 8 years in the Marine Corps before joining HPD.
Being a police officer is the one occupation that everyone is grouped together as a whole. So you have one police officer that does bad, the whole department is corrupt. And that's the way, unfortunately, we get talked about, which is unfair because no one says that about teachers. You have a teacher that preys on kids in schools. That teacher gets arrested, gets convicted. No one says all teachers are bad. They're all doing it to our children. No, they focus on that one teacher. But when you're a police officer and a police officer does something, then it's like they all do that. They're all corrupt. They're all bad. And we're not.
After Kealoha, the rank and file hoped for a long-term stability in whoever came next, but it was not to be. After some initial success, Hawaii's first female police chief resigned before the end of her 5-year term. Susan Ballard's unexpected exit came after a lukewarm review of her leadership by her overseers at the Honolulu Police Commission. The resignation also followed Ballard's involvement in a bitter internal conflict at the top. It was an all-out war that wasn't reported on and therefore stayed hidden from the public. The chief's departure announcement also exposed a rocky relationship between Ballard and Honolulu's newly installed city administration. Officer Tyler Montgomery moved to Hawaii from California for school. He joined HPD 2 years ago.
So I was getting in right when all that was going down, and already it just brought me down because makes you feel a little embarrassed per se, because you go out there and there's already just the public, they might not trust you as much and they don't even know you, whereas whatever you're trying to do or help them, or it's just the morale just kind of went down a little bit.
Whoever the new chief is, he or she must balance police work with backroom savvy. The modern day requires, like never before, a leader who is a rare combination, part cop, but larger part politician.
Well, I think there's a lot of challenges ahead for the Honolulu Police Department. So, I mean, if the next person is going to have to deal with these challenges, and the main challenge right now is gaining the trust back from the community.
The selection process for a new number one faces another giant hurdle. The position of chief is no longer looked at as the ultimate prize it once was.
Back in the day, that was a position that people wanted, and unfortunately, because of what's happening today, we don't know who really wants it.
I wouldn't want that position. I mean, I want to say 10 years ago, that was an ideal position that many people from not just locally, but everywhere wanted to be a chief of police here in Hawaii. But I just can't imagine why anyone would even want to be the chief of police,
Do you think it should be someone from here or from the mainland?
For somebody who's in-house or somebody who's local, they have a little bit of an edge because they know about our culture, but you need to put the people first. And I feel that if both sides, mainland or local, if they do that, they would do a decent job.
The officers of the Honolulu Police Department are ethnically diverse, with part Hawaiians still the dominant group. followed in order by Japanese, Caucasians, and Filipinos. If gender equality in terms of numbers is the goal in 2021, the department has fallen short. Men still dominate the population of nearly 2,000 sworn officers, with 87% of the force. Women, just 12%.
I believe that percentage was a lot lower when I first got in. And my personal background besides the uniform, no one ever thought that I would have become a policeman.
We agreed to take this job because we said we can do it. Yes, in a lot of cases, yeah, they may be stronger than us, but that doesn't make it better. It doesn't mean that we aren't equal and we can't do the exact same thing that they're doing. So it's a give and take being a female in this department.
No active discrimination against women?
Not that I've seen.
So females in general in the department have come a long way, and it's our choice to come into the department in a male-dominated occupation, but it shouldn't matter as long as we do our job. But I would hope to see in the future even more females enter the department.
Another group not well represented, Hawaii's 17,000 Micronesians, struggling with youth crime and trying to adapt to Hawaii culture. There are only 4 Micronesian HPD officers, and while Chuukese make up nearly half the state's Micronesian population, there are no Chuukese policemen, and none of the 4 Micronesian officers even speak the Chuukese language.
So if we have Micronesian officers from different islands, at least they can understand the Micronesians that might not understand what's going on when the police do arrive and question them.
Mitch Neth, a 16-year HPD veteran with a master's degree in criminology, is originally from Pohnpei. He says hiring more qualified Micronesian officers is critical.
It will bridge the gap from the misunderstanding part of from the police officer to the person that they're questioning.
Do you think that the Micronesian people are being unfairly blamed for the amount of crime? Most Micronesians are law-abiding?
Yes, for me personally, I do believe that. But when the Micronesians commit a crime, that's newsworthy. So they target those crimes. And then they always say where they're from. And then that's what brings the negativity towards the Micronesian people. Because that's not all they know about. What the media is bringing to the public is that, oh, these Micronesians are committing this crime. But there are so many other people from Micronesia that are law-abiding citizens.
But you think there is more the Micronesian community can do to fit in?
Yes.
What would that be?
We should come out like what I am doing right now, to speak out to let everyone just get to know us first, and then decide if you want to hate us or respect us or like us. But yeah, the higher ups from the consulate office, from the government back home, they should encourage the people coming here to at least respect the laws here first. And that's what they should do.
2 separate incidents in April of this year put the department on public trial with an intensity rarely experienced before. The first, the fatal shooting of a Micronesian teenage boy after a high-speed chase. The family is suing the department. 3 officers have now been charged in the shooting of the teenager. The second case, also a fatal shooting, was of a black man police said may have entered a Nu'uanu house with criminal intent and later attacked responding officers.
Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground now!
Both shootings generated a furious debate over the actions of the officers involved and the department's handling of each case. After a review of the Nu'uanu case, the city prosecutor's office made a decision that the shooting of the suspect was justified and there would be no criminal charges against the officers involved. Officers we spoke to could not comment about the specific cases and were not there, but say that bad outcomes are not intentional, just often unavoidable.
Again, how easily can things turn bad?
So it could happen within a second, 2 seconds, it's quick. And we have to be mindful how are we going to react to that.
Now, if everything was where the person complies and we were able to detain them, then of course all the officers that I work with and I personally can start bringing it down and start talking and say, okay, this is what we got, let's figure this out. But if a suspect isn't going to comply, and especially if a suspect is going to bring out a weapon or he's going to rush that officer, yeah, the results are going to be definitely different.
Police.
To them, rolling up on any call can mean danger for the officers and an unpredictable outcome. They point to the 2020 shooting deaths of officers Kaulike Kalama and Tiffany Enriquez, who responded to a suspect Enriquez had dealt with several times before. Neither officer had any indication the suspect had access to a gun or would use it.
You gotta take every situation differently and nothing's ever gonna be the same. So whether it's like you gotta go search a building or whatnot, anything can happen. And like in those weird moments, like you gotta tie it to your training, your experience, and what you hold on to.
At a news conference, the family attorney accused the officers in the Nu'uanu shooting of not following police procedure and of having a racial motive in the death, saying you can hear it in the tone of the officer addressing a black man, treating him like he is nothing. Officers we spoke to pushed back on accusations of racial profiling in arrests. Officer Chris Nutter has been a patrolman for 16 years.
I don't think anybody could reasonably think you would get away with that if you did think like that. And if you did think like that, I don't think you'd survive for very long before you get called on it and comes to an end.
You can say there's no targeting by race.
You got to have, your facts of the case, probable cause, and each case is its own case. You can't go around and pick and choose, I'm going to go after this race or that race. You just, each one is its own thing.
For me personally, I don't look at the individual, the color of their skin, what they look like. I look at what I was sent to, what the severity of the crime is, and if you did wrong, actions have consequences, and that's all to it. I'm there to do my job. And I want to go home at the end of the day. I want you to go home at the end of the day, but I have to deal with what's presented in front of me.
As long as they were committing a crime and they were identified as suspects, then they would get arrested. But in my career, I've never targeted any groups, and the guys I work with, I don't see that happening as well.
Do police here enforce on racial grounds?
No. I myself and my brothers and sisters who I've worked with, I've never seen that ever enforce a law or enforce anything or stop somebody just based on their race or arrest them just based on their race.
I haven't heard of any situations in my 21 years to where someone has said, oh, you're only going after them because they're black. He only got arrested because he's black.
So when accusations of racialized enforcement surface,
I am offended because it's not like that. And most people, if you notice in Hawaii, are usually mix of different races. And you can probably stop any one person on the street and they can just tell you right off the top, oh, how many they are. They're, a mix of races. And so for you to even say that, oh, it's racially profiling, you'd be incorrect.
Officers also blame social and mainstream media here of unfairly linking them to mainland use of force controversies.
unfortunately, people are believing, or they're trying to compare, Honolulu Police Department to other police departments, which is unfair, because the life we live here is not like any other state, I believe.
You have all these big stories and trials that just went on in the mainland that happen to have people who were shot or killed by police officers that happen to be Black. So they figure, oh yeah, it has to be, they're doing it too, because it's happening all over, but it's not.
2021 means challenges unheard of a generation ago. Many of the current issues facing Honolulu police are in crime and homeless hotspots on the island. Of major concern is the historical Honolulu landmark of Chinatown.
The community and government, if you could give a grade, A to F, on the efforts of each, what would that be?
The community, I definitely give it A+. The reason I give that grade is because they still show up every day, even though the amount of stuff they got to put up with, the drugs, the crime, the homelessness, and it's been going on like this for at least the 3 years I've been here, and it's gotten worse in my opinion. They come to work every day, open up shop, but when they got to deal with like human feces in front of their stores, or people sleeping in front of their stores, drugs, leftover, residue, trash, and they still come every day. If you're asking me the government grade, honestly, I don't want to hold back when I say this, but maybe a C-, D+. It's always talked about, and the people of this community get hope when they hear people talk about it. It gets them excited, like, yes, we're having finally someone do something about it, right? And it seems never developed that way.
We recently toured Chinatown with Sergeant Aaron Ostachuk, an officer who has spent years there on duty.
So if you look right over here, this is River Street, and we got the canal right over here. But if you look over there, they're over here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the homeless. They have nowhere to go. Over here, you can see this is the corner where all the drugs are being sold over here mostly. That kind of stuff, the drugs and the homelessness, it all ties together. You know, they all congregate in the same area. The drug dealers are happy because they're gonna get the money. The addicts are happy because they're getting their drugs, their alcohol. And so you got all the businesses over here, and they have to put up with the game room that's right over here, which draws a lot of crime, a lot of drug addicts, and additionally more homelessness.
Right.
So usually in the morning time, you'll see it packed. As you can see, it's locked up. They keep it locked up. They got the camera right there. They will usually sometimes not make it obvious, but try to make it obvious for people who want to come and gamble. Like, that's why the door is painted red. Like, it's a symbol, like, hey, this is we're over here.
Are you ahead of on the enforcement end, or are you just keeping it under control?
You can see in the news lately, game rooms are being taken down left and right. Unfortunately, the bad part is they're easy to come right back up. They'll set up shop somewhere else, or let's say if this place was taken down, it might be abandoned for a couple months, but someone will step right back in and set it up again. Right behind the Mauna Kea Market is River of Life, which is the mission that feeds the homeless 3 times a day, provides them meals. It sticks out because it's painted green like this. That's the symbol that draws a lot of people. I totally believe that all these people have a good heart, and it is a wonderful mission what they're doing. It's just being in Chinatown is what's causing a lot of problems. And I think if they move somewhere else where it was a congregated area of social services, like housing, medical, all in one area, the problem would get solved regardless of where it's at, because it's better control. I know a lot of people that are in Chinatown that are workers, business owners, or they live here, they really don't want it here because it does bring the homeless here.
The work of a Honolulu police officer is a difficult mission and a dangerous calling. It means bringing order to a world that sometimes seems more and more unrecognizable and often makes no sense.
Okay, you gotta go, they're gonna arrest you. You don't wanna get arrested, do you? Okay, you gotta go grab your stuff. We are intended to protect life, property, prevent crime, protect the weak from the strong, the good from the evil. People don't realize is that we're not, I want to say we're not educated, but we're not trained to handle those type of things like mental health, homelessness, social issues, health issues, and so forth. We didn't go to school for that. We went to school to become law enforcement officers.
An officer hears constant criticism, but when the critic's home is invaded, it's the police who get the first frantic call for help.
It's kind of hard to find positivity in what you do because, like, if you're gonna come in and every day, like, people are just gonna bring you down, tear you up, throw hate at you, you kind of forget, like, what you're doing, why you're doing it, or even why you signed up to do this, you know? But with that, you just gotta remember that there's gonna be people there that are willing to help you, people there that are willing to be for you, even through, like, dark times. Like, you always gotta have that light during the dark times.
No, I don't lose hope because as long as I can reach one person, I feel that I've done my job, and that one person can probably reach another person. As long as that train keeps on going, I won't lose hope.
Do things go wrong? Is there room for improvement? Of course. But those who wring their hands and accuse our police of widespread corruption are simply wrong and do a disservice to our men and women in blue. There is one department statistic that we believe is critical in a debate over police misconduct. In 2020, Honolulu police responded to nearly 700,000 cases. The number of those cases that resulted in complaints against officers, only 200. That's fewer than 0.1% of all cases. And the percentage of those complaints that resulted in disciplinary action was even smaller.
Do you ever lose hope?
Actually, I don't. Because there's always, when you get to that point, you always manage to run into somebody. And sometimes it's like the little things they do or the little things that they say that make you go, okay, you know what? There is still good people that think we are needed, that want us to be here. So it's a thankless job, but it's not a hopeless job.
The daily successes of the Honolulu Police Department are rarely seen, heard, or written about, but those successes far outweigh any failures. And that is the real story behind the badge. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Levi. Good night.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Matt Levi Investigates, HPD Behind the Badge 2021. Brought to you in the public interest without commercial interruption by BEI Hawaii, Hawaii's leading distributor of agricultural and industrial chemicals, fertilizer, and specialty products. And by Hawaii Pacific Health, creating a healthier Hawaii.